If you thought that in order to save tax, you had to move to a country with a headline 0% tax rate like the UAE or Vanuatu, you're wrong. There are actually a lot of countries around the world that will let you structure your affairs in an international way and pay zero tax. I'm going to give you a few examples in this video. I'm Andrew Henderson, and in the many videos we have on offshore tax on our channel, one thing you'll find is that people often make mistakes in two ways. Either they think it's too easy, i.e., I'll just incorporate a offshore company and stay living where I live now, or they think it's too difficult, i.e., what we're talking about today. A lot of people think that if they want to pay zero tax, they need to move to a country that has no tax, and that's not entirely the case. Now, one of the other misconceptions is that you can just be a nomadic traveler with no permanent home. That doesn't really work anymore, okay? And so a lot of the countries have really cracked down on that, where as long as you don't spend more than a certain amount of time in Australia, you won't pay Australian tax. You're gonna need to do better than that today. You're gonna wanna have a place that you call home, even if it's not for very long every year, okay? So you can still have the freedom to travel, but you need to have some place that you call home. That place does not, however, need to be a headline 0% tax rate jurisdiction. And so people all have heard about Monaco. They've heard about, again, the UAE and many of the Middle Eastern countries, Vanuatu. These countries have no tax. Bahamas is another one. They simply don't tax you, okay? And so they get their revenue from oil, they get their money from gambling, they get their money from whatever. There's no income tax, oftentimes no estate tax, gift tax, anything. You can live there tax-free. And if you want to live in Monaco, there's nothing wrong with that. It makes tax planning a lot easier to simply check out of your current country and check into Monaco and spend your time there. You won't have a lot of problems. But let's say that you can't afford to live in Monaco, or you simply, you're like me, you don't want to really live in Monaco full-time. What you can do is rely on the territorial tax country. Now, these are often misunderstood, and I've seen a lot of misinformation out on the internet when it comes to the territorial tax country. But very simply, a territorial tax country is one where they don't tax your foreign source income. They only tax local income. This is basically where you could have a job in the country and you're going to pay salary tax. You have rental property in the country, you'll pay rental income tax. In many cases, if you sell that rental property, you'll pay a capital gains tax. There are many domestic taxes. In that regard, they function like any kind of other normal country. But the exception is if your income is sourced from overseas, you won't pay there. So let me give you an example. Okay? I spend a good part of my year in Malaysia, which is one of these territorial tax countries. I have friends who live and work in Malaysia. They have jobs, they have work permits, and they pay taxes in Malaysia on their salaries, the same as anyone else. Okay? However, I'm able to live in Malaysia, and if I lived there long enough to become a tax resident, I would not be taxed on my worldwide income, which means I can choose how I want to set up my affairs. Now, if I decided to put all of my assets into Malaysian real estate, I wouldn't really feel much of the effect. But if I said, you know what, I'm going to go to Georgia and invest in property there, where I can pay 5% rental income tax on residential property, and then when I sell it, I can set it up properly to get 0% capital gains tax. Malaysia would not add any additional taxes to that. So here at Nomad Capitalist, we talk about go where you're treated best. And so this is just another way to compartmentalize your money and your life to where Malaysia gives you the best of what it has to offer. But okay, we don't really want to invest in Malaysia because that's higher tax, maybe not as much growth. We invest over here, and then Malaysia leaves us alone on that, okay? What a lot of times people think is they need to live, work, bank, incorporate their business, hire, et cetera, all in one place. They say, I'm leaving the United States, I'm leaving Australia, what's the new place I'm going to? And instead, you should look at it like new places. There might be 3 or 5 or even 10 different places. You want to structure your affairs around the world so that the territorial tax country will give you, as I said, the benefits of that. So let's give you some examples of these territorial tax countries. In Asia, we mentioned Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, the Philippines. In Eastern Europe, Georgia. In Central America, Panama, Nicaragua, Costa Rica. Those are just a handful of examples, okay? So these are countries where you can go, you can spend some time. Now, just being a resident, just spending some time in these countries doesn't necessarily mean you're a taxpayer, okay? So what I'm saying is if you become a taxpayer or a tax resident in these countries, your foreign income wouldn't be taxed. Foreign income from corporations, foreign income from real estate investments, et cetera, et cetera. Now, here's where the misinformation comes in that I see a lot of people getting confused with, and I think people are perhaps being a bit aggressive. Just because it's territorial doesn't mean that there aren't any restrictions. Some of these countries, for example, will say if you're required to get a work permit because you're generating income from within the country, that income could be deemed local source. So in that case, it becomes a balancing act of, well, how much of your company's revenue is generated by you? That salary should be taxed. Maybe the business shouldn't be taxed. Then it goes to controlled foreign corporation. There's lots of different rules that come into play, right? But some countries will say, if you're doing work in a country, then it's really not foreign source, okay? They might honor that real estate investments somewhere else are legitimately foreign source, right? I mean, a real estate investment somewhere else is obviously foreign. They might differ, though, on work. And so what the mistake some people make is, I'll just go and live in one of these territorial tax countries, and I'll do my work, I'll make my income, I'll take my salary. And it may not be that simple in all cases. In some cases it is, in some cases it's not. Other countries have rules on remitting income into the country, i.e., you can keep all your banking outside of the country. Maybe you keep a small local bank account just for daily transactional purposes. But if you bring money into the country, in some cases it's bringing money into the country this year. In other cases it's ever bringing money into the country, right? So they have those restrictions. They say live on your foreign bank accounts. Okay? Other countries, it pretty much is the wild, wild west, and you can do whatever you want. And by the way, there are other countries that have this tax system. I'm mentioning the ones that probably have the most wide appeal to someone watching this. So what you have to understand is you're not necessarily going for a headline tax rate. There are plenty of countries that have exceptions, have carve-outs. This is one of them. There are plenty of others. We have a whole video and series of videos on different tax systems and ways to save money. But this is potentially a way, when structured properly, to pay as little as 0% tax on your worldwide affairs by having your company in a 0% place, living in a place that doesn't tax foreign income, and having real estate in a place that's very lightly taxed, as well as bank accounts in a place where your interest isn't taxed, as well as your stocks in a place where they're not going to be taxed, and buying stocks from countries that won't tax you. So if you get all those things sorted out properly, you can save yourself a lot of money. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist. I wrote this book, which you can find on Amazon, to distill a lot of the stuff we talk about in these videos and a lot of the stuff I've learned over the last decade plus traveling all around the world, teaching you about how to legally reduce your taxes, build your personal freedom, and create wealth faster. Definitely get a copy of this book if you want to learn more. Now, if you want to watch more videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the notifications bell so you never miss one of our new videos with more tips on how to go where you're treated best. And if you're already a 6- or 7-figure entrepreneur and you'd like to put these strategies in place for yourself, go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn about how I can help you.